You ever think about quitting?
It's the combat of life hammering the snot out of you.
Well, stand by, dig in deep, and get ready to get fired up with us.
Welcome to the Team Never Quit podcast, the #1 podcast that inspires you to fight on. I'm your host, David Rutherford, here with Mr. Never Quit himself, Marcus Luttrell.
Our mission is to help you embrace the suck of life, to teach you the values of working your ass off, and to interview the most hard-charging people on planet Earth.
We know life is hard. It's time for you to suck it up, Buttercup, and let us teach you to persevere in every environment imaginable by sharing real-world lessons learned by those who never quit. That's right. It's time, Marcus, for us to help them defeat the negative insurgency in their lives.
You fire me up. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's roll.
Let's roll.
No kidding.
Right?
Shut up. Remember when you had to introduce yourself as a new guy at the team?
Of course.
Oh, my God.
You remember the first time that ever... Actually, I witnessed it happen to someone else before it happened to me.
Yeah, me too.
So I knew it was coming.
Right, yeah. That muster. That's hilarious. Oh, Marcus. Shut up. Get out of here. Loser. Luttrell. And the guys who would keep going, right? They wouldn't stand down. They're like, oh, here we go. Gonna get it.
All right.
Let's take a second and introduce Clint.
Absolutely. Hey, Clint, you with us?
I'm here.
You know what? I'm honored to have this guy sitting across from me today.
Hey, we're really glad you could step in and help us out, buddy.
Yeah.
No, listen, it's an honor. It's an opportunity. It's fun to be with Marcus and you and really, really neat to with some of the guests that we get to have. And honestly, you know, the listeners that tune into this are amazing people, and it feels pretty neat to get some time with them as well.
Absolutely. Hey, you want to give the people out there listening a little rundown of, you know, who you are, what you got going on, why on earth we decided to ask you to join us?
Well, I'm still trying to figure that one out. But what I'll
you
say
actually are probably the most qualified one here, so let's hear it.
I have this kind of Forrest Gumpian kind of life where I've just kind of stumbled around, found myself in neat places, and worked really hard to keep up with amazing people. Played football in college, lived in the NFL, played at the Naval Academy, and then had an opportunity to go through BUD/S and join the SEAL teams in the Special Operations community. Did multiple deployments in the Special Operations community and loved that, and got out, was involved in a rescue operation, Hurricane Katrina, that gave me insight and an opportunity to start my own company to work for some of the best leaders in America and create amazing careers for veterans and athletes as they transition. I've just been doing that since then. And so every day is an opportunity for me to learn from someone, to learn from life, and to teach someone what I've already learned. And it's fun to be on this show to do all those things.
Awesome. Well, we're
Amen, brother.
glad to have you.
Right? All right. Hey, man, how about today's guest, brother?
Secretary of Interior.
How awesome is this guy's life, man? The way I dig guys who have those patterns like that. When, man, you don't want to call them overachievers because that's an insult to them, man. It's just they're living. LIVIN.
Yeah, that's it. It's like, hey, next ridgeline. Like, well, hey, what's next? And that's all he's done. And I tell you what's really interesting is one of the guys I get to work with every day over Try to Response Group, Ben Williams, went through BUD/S with him. So they were in the same class, and so to be able to visit with Scoop and hear like the consistency of the hardcore nature, the consistency of the hardness, and then that he's just kind of stayed that way ever since then. The thing about
the cool thing about our community, man, is it's so small. I mean, at any given time, what is there, about 1,800 of us running around?
Yeah.
Well, then even after we get out of the community, we're still connected to everybody with 1 degree of separation. Would you say that's true about 1 degree?
Yeah, the alumni is small. The alumni is extremely small too, and it's like, the alumni of guys who played in the NFL is more than the alumni of guys who've been barrel-chested frogmen. And
right.
So it's fun to have that very small ecosystem, and even because we work in such a joint environment right now, we extend that kind of alumni declaration to MARSOC and SF and Rangers and PJs and CCTs. Even that ecosystem is really small, and the way we've worked since 9/11 is we've always operated in a joint environment. So it's fun to have those relationships with the Air Force Bubbas and our brothers from different branches, and it's just a real fun tribe to be a part of.
Yeah, when you see when a team guy accomplishes something, and you see that because we all stand behind the same trident. It's a sense of pride. Yes, it's like, you know, we weren't on the Bin Laden raid, but don't think my chest was like, yes. Yeah.
Right.
Hey, it's like the way I feel about Navy football. When Navy football has a great season, I mean, gosh, my last snaps were in 1996, and every year I'm proud of the boys. I'm proud of how they're playing. Proud of how they're keeping kind of that brotherhood alive. It's fun. It's fun to have lived that season.
Yeah,
for a
now
little
that
while.
the next generation of the Seal Pups, I mean, we're off the pond, man. We're
The Space Cowboys.
Right, the new guys coming up. This is the chance. Like the Vietnam guys were watching us, and I remember having to go to the reunions and stuff like that. And they were like, "Man, we're so proud of you guys." I'm like, "What are we talking about, dude? Men with green faces."
Yeah,
well,
right.
we're the killers with the painted arms, right?
Way
And
cooler than I am.
we pulled our weight, and now it's time for the younger guys to do that. I'm excited and excited for
I remember
that.
walking around when I was a brand new team guy, and every day I felt like the kid in the Mean Joe Green commercial. Like, thank you, mister. Thank you, mister.
Right, man.
Like,
God,
you know,
man.
you get some old plank owner at Dev Group, like, it's like he gives you his booty hat, and he's like Mean Joe Green just
Right?
his towel. You're like, oh, I'm never using this. I'm gonna hyperbarically seal it and all these other things. I mean,
Yeah.
but we're those guys now.
Oh man! Oh, I know I have 9 of these, but I need 10. You know, as soon as one of those crusty some bitches are getting out and open up that golden cruise box, man, it's a
and like even some of the stuff that like doesn't even work, like you never use it, but you're just like, oh, that was like that was awesome. Like I need to somehow integrate it in this current operation, even though it didn't even work when he was issued it.
Yeah, right.
It's just so I'm gonna find
damn, I got it though. It's here. I have it. There was a couple of things that Morgan and I had made that we passed down. Like my trident's passed down.
That's awesome.
And then I had a knife that we made up that's been passed down. So kind of
Really?
I never had a chance to make chief or be anybody's sea daddy or anything like that. But I did have some of my new guys that came up underneath me, man. And the day I was walking out, I passed my trident down, and then he'll have to pass it down, and then I passed a knife down. Morgan and I both did. So it always has to belong to an operator. The guy who made it, he goes, "This is an operator's blade," so it has to stay in the teams. And
That's cool.
Yeah, you know, that's the guys that came before us. They were passing that down unknowingly. You know, it generates those crazy thoughts in team guys' minds, and why not? I mean,
Oh,
you know,
and you end up keeping stuff you never use. Like right now in my high bay, I've got a dang dry suit that belonged to the chief that kind of put me in. Like we didn't even wear a dry suit when we were in the teams together. I still got that thing. I'm never going to use it. Well, I don't know. I mean,
Don't say that. You are capable of outfitting a small military unit in the event of zombie apocalypse or
we're ready. It's all up
Revolution
there.
Mode.
Yeah, it's all out there.
we're Red Dawn ready for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And with my size, you know, technically you could outfit, you know, 2 guys with most of my gear. Just cut it in half, put another fast tech on.
Hell, cut it in half, make a bivouac out of it.
Exactly
Or
right.
a lean-to.
I have like 36 mag pouches because, you know, that 42 waistline, you can carry a lot of rounds. You know? You just hold your arms up like, come to me. Resupply yourselves, man.
Clint, take off your belt. We need a fast rope.
That's right. The walking mag mule, man.
Feed from my.
Like the scene in Aspiratation Journey. All the old guys are bringing up. I'm like, come to me, my warriors. You know, pulling out new mags and putting the empty ones back in there. And I'm back there trying to figure out why my damn radio's not working
Mama
again.
warfare.
Where the hell is the radio? It's in there somewhere.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
We
I
should
was-
all have a small Army Navy supply store in our garage. Yeah.
Well, it's already there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess just need to put a price tag on it and hang it on a wall.
And you know what else is funny? I guarantee you, every one of us, we have a gear blowout where we just get bored, and all of a sudden you throw up the high bay and you sort your gear out like you're getting ready to do another workup. Like, you know, the worst thing is I found a pair. I'm not gonna lie to you. I found a pair of my Bud's UDT shorts the other day.
Oh my God, you trying to throw the one with one button? Did it have the one button or did it have the no button, just the belt?
Oh, this is old school, one button. I mean, this is like the old school.
Yeah, but was it
1990
there? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. The most tight some bitches.
1997 version. They didn't make it past the knees. Didn't make it past the knees, brother. I'm not gonna lie to you.
The greens, man.
Nice.
I love the greens. You were greens, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Soft.
I think I might have been the last class in greens, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had
No
greens.
greens.
Yeah, those are the deal.
Absolutely. We had old school.
I still have a pair of mine downstairs, starched up
Yeah.
with the white tag.
Well, hey, you know what?
Oh man, we got off topic again. Yeah. All right. So all the stories that we're talking about, the guy we're bringing on here, Mr. Secretary now.
Mr. Secretary now. All right. So let's just give a real quick overview of how impressive this man is. We've been talking about it by giving some details. He started out, played college football at University of Oregon, where he was a center, right?
Yeah, an undersized center, and an undersized center that was a pulling center, so it's an athletic center. Always lined up against someone bigger than him.
Yeah, from Whitefish. You know, there's a lot of frogs coming out of Whitefish. Something must be in the water up there.
Montana and Texas,
yeah.
right?
Well, yeah.
Then after that, obviously, he goes to Buds, makes it through that, has a full career, retires with the rank of commander. Let me just list off a couple of the accomplishments there. He graduated at Buds, class 136, had time at Team 1, then he worked at, did a first tour over at Dev Group, was a planning officer for the Commander-in-Chief of U.S. Naval Forces Europe, went back to Dev Group, did another pump there as team leader, ground force commander, served as the XO of NSW Unit 2, and then again at the Special Warfare Center. 2004, he was the deputy and acting commander of Siege of Sodif for Arabian Peninsula. And then finally, in 2006, he was selected to establish the Naval Special Warfare Advanced Training Command.
And that's some sexy stuff, right?
That's
And the
huge.
SEAL teams, then we have an advanced training command, and we have a select team too, right?
Mm-hmm.
I love being a frogman, dude. It's so cool.
He gets out of there, returns to his home state, gets elected to Montana's state senate in 2009. Then elected to Congress.
Right?
Yeah. Elected to Congress 2015, and now was just recently appointed Secretary of the Interior by President Trump.
And rode in on a horse. He rode in on a horse day one.
After his swearing-in ceremony. Decided to ride down the street on a horse.
Great idea to have a
Teddy Roosevelt style, right?
Oh, yeah. I'd imagine he's probably a fan of his, because you look at his life and how he kind of does things.
Yeah.
But Secretary of Interior having a frogman and a country boy from Montana doing that, I'm looking forward to hearing the stories about when we were all in, and then the ones he's making now. Because they're great, right? You get up into that part of it. There's the stuff that, you find out where it trickled down from and how the madness starts.
I would love to be a fly on the wall at kind of one of his first debriefs in kind of his new Secretary of the Interior position. We have some of these career politicians and career bureaucrats who, like, you try to get stuff done, but you try to make sure everybody's really happy. I guarantee you that's not how he's running those debriefs. Those debriefs are going to be like our debriefs.
No, absolutely
where
not.
someone's probably going to end up crying or quitting.
Sure.
Because that's what needs to
right.
happen.
That's what I was thinking too, man. What you got there is you have a SEAL commander running the show. He's going to run it like a...
Yeah, but at the same time, I'm interested in hearing how he's adjusted, because you cannot, I'm sure he doesn't interact. He does not treat people the same way. The same methods are not going to be effective.
Oh, well, yeah, that dark humor.
It's a completely different culture. I'm curious how he's adjusted for that.
The front-leaning rest is always an appropriate position to get briefed from.
Yeah, what was that?
I want to see the front-leaning rest. Hey, why don't you give me that report from the front-leaning rest there, Mr. Undersecretary? That's got to happen.
Go ahead, Don. You got a question?
Yeah.
I understand. Great question. Now, I didn't like your tone. Go get wet and sandy. Kind of stuff.
I can't wait to hear what this...
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear what he has to say.
Yeah, this is going to be good.
Let's get him on. What do you say?
All right. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, everybody, welcome to Team Never Quit podcast. Excited today to be on here with you, the listeners. You make this thing fantastic. It's always fun. It's always a pleasure. It's always a neat opportunity to share with you our own Never Quit stories that are very similar to your own. And today we have a really remarkable guest. A guy who I knew who he was when I was first in the community, as a guy who, played football in college, and you always kind of know who the other college football players are, and, played a major Division I program at Oregon. And so I always knew who Commander Zinke was. And so it's fun to be on the radio with him now. I think all the listeners are going to know exactly who he is and what he is, what he's doing now based on what he's done since the teams. And sir, just wanted to slow down and welcome you real quick to the show. Marcus wanted you to jump in on that and welcome him as well if you wanted to.
Hey, great to be with you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this, man. I obviously I didn't get a chance to work with him. He was ahead of me, and we linked up afterwards. But I mean, it's I'm glad we got a chance to get him on there, and because everything he's accomplished, it's kind of one of those guys that never stops climbing the ladder, right? There is no end goal. It's just keep going. So, Mr. Zinke, with great respect, thank you for coming on the show.
No, great to be with you, and I never quit. This is the hallmark of SEALs. You just keep your head down and keep pushing forward.
That's it.
Hey, so from a protocol perspective, do you want us calling you Commander, Sir, Secretary?
No, Z-Man or Zinc is good.
Okay, good.
That's good. That's what I was hoping.
Yeah, Zinc's gonna fly in my mouth.
That's one syllable,
funny.
and I can roll with that.
Well, I've been called a lot worse, so we're good.
We all have.
All right, here we go. We're gonna start off with the Mad Minute, right?
Yeah, we'll roll right into the Mad Minute. So the Mad Minute, what we do here is just kind of loosen up the brain cells. All of us got that fog of concussions and all these other things. So we like to get the brain stem rolling and the brain activate a little bit. We ask a bunch of just real quick fire questions. They're not professional. They're more insightful, more just kind of, hey, what makes you tick? And they're fun. The fun questions. So one of the first questions I got to ask, and Marcus always asks these same questions too, but this is a long-going debate within the community. And as a Montana man who spent some time in Oregon, got to know your insight on Sasquatch. Real or not real?
Not real. No, it's a wish. Although there's some pretty big bears out there, and creatures in the woods, no Sasquatch.
That is so disappointing.
Yeah. You're obviously not looking at the same dude I am right now.
Unless Marcus is in a ghillie suit. You know, that's about the closest we got to a Sasquatch around.
All right, favorite superhero?
Oh, I got to go with the consistent Superman.
Mm-hmm.
Solid.
Or Captain America, one or two.
Cap. That's
favorite 80s wrestler, professional wrestler.
Was it Superfly? He was a little guy. Well, I'm going to go with Hulk Hogan. He was big, dominating at the time. Hulk Hogan.
That's good.
All right. First car.
Corvette, classic.
Nice.
Back to your football pedigree. When you were playing linebacker, hardest guy to tackle. When you were playing center, hardest guy to block.
I would have to say Scott Garnett out of Washington. He had 25-inch biceps, and he had hand-carved boss on the side of his arm. As a nose guard out of Washington, he picked me up and threw me like a wafer. As a linebacker, I would have to say I'd go with SC, probably Charlie White in the backfield. He was flying.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
Getting your hands on him is only half the equation. You still got to wrap them up and contain them and get them to the ground.
Yeah, Oregon had a lot of good backs too, because Oregon was a track team a lot. We had some guys that were no doubt in the 4.1, 4.2 range, and a kid from Montana. I had to adjust my pursuit angles accordingly.
Yeah. Grab a net. God, 4.1, man, that's smoking, dude. I just came down from Exos where all the combine kids were, man. They're running 4.2s and 4.3s. I mean, this day and age, 4.1, man. That's how. Anyways.
Favorite place. I mean, this is one of the things that's neat about our community, and especially with your job right now. Your job right now is called interior, but that's really a misnomer because you're really focusing on the great outdoors and all these other things. Of the places you've been, where you deployed to, even now, what's the place where you just kind of your jaw dropped and like, this is one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen?
Glacier Park in Montana still is a special place. And the nice thing, one of the many nice things about being the Department of Interior is the national parks, the refuges, a lot of wildernesses, all fall under the Interior. And I can tell you, I'm the steward of what I think are our nation's greatest treasures.
That's right. That's Roosevelt. That's the Roosevelt office. Preserve the outdoors and spend time out there. So
and preserve traditional hunting, fishing, land use, multiple use. I think we've been pretty heavy-handed. The federal government's been pretty heavy-handed. They kind of turned a deaf ear to a lot of the local communities, the state issues, and we got to restore trust.
Yeah, it's good. It's good having a country boy in there, and also from the perspective of being a hunter. I mean, no one loves animals more than the hunters do. We cultivate them, and we provide food for them, and we see who's sick, what's not sick, and then I mean, if you work the land, and you're right, back into the communities, because people who live in the city have no idea how things go down here in the country, man, and vice versa. So it's kind of hard for one size fits all when it.
Yeah, for them it's sort of just theoretical, right?
Well, and you're right. One size doesn't fit all. Ends up fitting nobody. And our nation has diversity in areas. You have around Seattle and in that area, Portland. Very recreation centric. Very environmentally driven.
Right.
That's great. And then you got to look at other places that are more traditional hunting, fishing, multiple use. And I think you got to respect the people that live in those areas. And we can do it right. We're a great country.
Oh, we'll figure it out.
You're always going to steward your backyard.
Yeah. I mean, the resident expert, right? Like the doctor, you wouldn't go in there and tell him how to work on your heart. I mean, we live down here around these animals all the time. I mean, spot them, know exactly what they are, and identify them usually by individual traits. I mean, we spend that much time with them, especially those of us out in the woods all the time. But yeah, absolutely.
If you could go back in time and spend 6 months to a year with anyone in history, who would it be?
I got to go with Teddy Roosevelt. He was a man of action. He was a colonel, and he did charge up the hill. And throughout his lifetime, looking back he believed we're all Americans first and foremost. And he was square deal. He broke up the monopolies, but also, didn't like rebel rousers. He was just for America first. And he was a man of action. He did not shy away from controversy. He oftentimes jumped into it, and he respected the man in the arena. I think he was a great president. I would just love to spend some time with him. I have through his writings, but I'd love to meet him personally.
Zink, it's so funny that you brought that up because you're sitting in a chair that he created in a lot of ways at the interior level. And one of the things I want to talk about as we go into this broadcast is kind of the myth of talent. Like there's this, especially in our community, or you look at the collegiate football level, and for sure talent's really there, but most of the time, I think there's an affliction at some point in time it comes to talent, because if you have a lot of talent, you don't know how to suffer, you don't know how to grind, you don't know how to work. And it relates to Theodore Roosevelt specifically. He was an extraordinarily untalented person when it came to his physicality. I mean, everything when we hear about his physicality, I mean, that was self-forged. He didn't come out of the womb gifted. I mean, asthmatic, feeble. A lot of ways in the outdoors was his gym, and that's part of his story. That's part of how he was able to do so much at San Juan Hill. It's just these forced escapades out in the woods, not knowing how to do anything, just learning out, going out to North Dakota, going out to Montana. He's a fascinating person for people to study when they check themselves out of great endeavors because they think, well, I'm just not talented enough. Well, that's kind of an excuse. And you look at characters like Roosevelt and you realize that talent wasn't part of the secret sauce anyway. It was just work.
Did you know that Teddy Roosevelt IV was a SEAL?
Yeah. Oh, I didn't.
Yeah. He's a gentleman who lives out of New York. Teddy Roosevelt IV. I think he was class 39. But he's a frogman. So we got to direct descendant of Roosevelt within the ranks.
No kidding.
It was the hardest one, right? Definitely the hardest one.
I bet class of 39 at the last real hell week too. I think
it was always wintertime back then.
I mean, the first thing he said, he'd say, "Did y'all have a winter hell week?" If we didn't, then he's just done talking to us.
Well, my hell week was so difficult, the instructors quit.
That's outstanding.
Even the supply officers were getting frustrated.
All right. Well, Zeke, what's fun is I get to work every day with the guy that went through Buds with you, a guy named Ben Williams. Your class was pretty stout, and you had Ben Williams, you had you had Kilrain, you had
Steve Nelson, Kilrain, Brian Brackett was in there. Dunn. No, we had a great class, like most SEAL class. I think we started with 139 or so and ended up with, a couple dozen. Our class plaque was a hammer because we weren't very smart, but we were tough, and we got jocked up in third phase. So most guys get it. Still is Rick. We got Jack Allen, which most of you know. He was a Marine that served in Da Nang. So he was an enlisted guy in Da Nang as a Marine.
Oh man,
And Rick is still doing great things for our country. But Rick is one of the toughest men I've ever met.
Man, he was my brother's skipper, and you look at me, kickboxer too, as well. We were out in the middle of nowhere.
Long legs.
In Afghanistan. All right, we were sighting our rifles out at Eagle Base. I mean, this place is out in the middle of nowhere, man. And he comes walking out of this hut, just him with the come out there with those guys he was training by him. So he's like, I've been out here forever, man. You just run into him out in the middle. He is kind of one of those Jason Bourne, like you never know what he's doing, guys. He's so unassuming,
do
too.
you remember a guy named George Hudak? George Hudak was the Vietnam era guy, but George was about 135 pounds with a 5-pound weight in each pocket. But George, was one of these guys that went indigenous in Vietnam. He came back, got out, lived for a while under the bridge, lived in a teepee, riding a horse El Campo. But George, he is incredibly tough. He used to be the tunnel rat, with a flashlight and the 45, and he enjoyed it. And to tell you, we have a great community, and it's Special Forces too, as you know. It's the same look in the eye. They just want to serve God and country and do the right thing.
Well, in the Marine Corps, I mean, that's what's so neat about the whole community. Just like you said, the entirety of the United States military armed forces. I mean, it's really fun to meet these young guys and gals who are just ramrod straight and proud and have conviction in their eyes. And then we were very fortunate to be in the special operations community where you just see, different flavors of the same stuff. There's the Marine Corps and the Marshal guys, the SF and Ranger guys, the PJs and the CCT. I mean, we're just a very fortunate group. We really are. See, one of the things I wanted to ask you about as we kind of head into the meat of this thing is, growing up in Montana, had you always aspired to be in the community? Was it something that just kind of became available to you as you transitioned over to Oregon? Tell us a little bit about kind of the roots and the roots of the passions that you're following now.
I came in 1985, and this was before the books and the calendars and the movie. About the only thing out there was a short clip on men with green faces and a World War II frogmen movie. But, the SEALs had yet to come in their own. I mean, you had Jesse Ventura kind of in the wrestling piece being a SEAL, but even that was kind of later in the 80s. And so I went through Oregon, had a modest amount of success playing football, and there was an Admiral Dick was his name. He commanded the Enterprise during Vietnam War. And he asked me what I was doing, and he goes, I'm gonna learn how to dive and be a geologist. And he goes, if you're gonna dive, there's a Navy unit that kind of has your personality. It's called the SEALs. And he says, all voluntary. You could leave at any time, which was true. And he asked me if I went try out. So he brought a recruiter down, and he'd do the screening test. He got orders for me to go to basic underwater demolition SEAL school, and that's the story. I had no childhood dreams because I didn't really know what a SEAL was. I swam as a kid and hunted in cold weather. But I can tell you, my career as a SEAL, I was never the best jumper, diver, explosive expert. I can't even remember anything that I was the best at. But my art was always knowing who was. And
That's right.
I tell you, I had the honor of having just a superb group around me of the most talented, committed, patriotic, and as you know, the competition's keen. So, everyone wants to be the best, right? And just to watch the talent and what I would call American exceptionalism in action, that was the greatest honor, just be among really, really good people.
Absolutely. I mean, I live by that one myself. And it's true in the teams, man. If you've got a guy who's isolated himself, call himself the greatest at whatever it is we do, man, I don't think that's possible because of the caliber of men we have. I was just damn honored to be in the middle of them and just kept up my skills, worked out because just to make sure I could stay there. And, if you beat somebody on a given day, are you the best? No, man, on a given day, there's always something going on with us. And it's just the whole intensity of staying there around each other that makes it worth it, man. But yeah, I was the same way, absolutely, man. I got drugged through Buds. Drugged through Buds by one of my teammates. And when I say, he tied a piece of 550 to my UDTs and the back of his, and then the officers would surround me, and the enlisted guys would watch for the instructors, and he drugged me. I would fall down. My finger was broke, man. I would fall. That guy was an animal, dude. JB, I love you, man.
I love that. See, I remember on the beach runs, because I left, graduated from Annapolis, went straight to the Ravens, left the Ravens, went straight to Buds. And so, I came out of the NFL, a 255-pound, not cardio, not a triathlete. And I remember in our first conditioning run, I think I was a mile and a half behind everybody else in the class. And it got so bad in first phase that all the fast runners, they'd finish and then they'd come back and they would taunt me and stay just out of my silverback reach to try to slap them
down.
And they just make me so angry that I'd chase them and come in about 2 seconds before the limit at the.
How were you on the runs, Zink? Were you good? Were you a good runner?
I was decent. I'd run track in high school. I slimmed down, but I got to tell you, I was a pulling center. I think I was the last pulling center in Division I. My last game, I was 215 pounds.
And 215?
215 as a center. Now, I had Gary Zimmerman on my right side, Hall of Famer. Extraordinaire, just an incredible athlete who had a long and successful NFL career. And then I had Scott Shepard on my right, and those guys saved my life every day. But we would pull the center, and when a linebacker is at 220, 235. I was fast enough where force equals mass times acceleration. Yeah. I was fast enough to do well at that. But if I had a nose guard over me, it made some very long days if my task was to move him anywhere without a double team.
How much did you feel like? And this is a question I always love asking people who've competed at increasingly high levels, and competing in high school, that's an amazing level of competing. You go to Division I level, and then you go to the league. It's all the same thing. There's just a little more intensity, a little more size and speed. But what you just described about how you survived as an athletic center Division I football was reliance on these two beasts on either side of you. That's really not that different than the story that gets told again in the SEAL teams. How much did you, when you decided to go into the SEAL teams, how much of your decision was to continue that tribal life that we all love, where we know we're surrounded by people who we need and people who need us? Was that a big part of the attraction for you?
It was. I was on, scouting teams and then football teams and, of course, SEAL teams. We rely on each other's talents to be successful. And I'll say, off the field we're the worst. We pick on each other and we talk before the show is we eat our own, and even though we've had some individuals that have been enormously successful, oftentimes rather than praising them, a lot of guys try to pick on them, but when we're in the field, I think that the SEALs have had a history of being mission focused, getting the job done, never quit, and a reflection of the training. You don't have to be first, but you can't be last, as you know, otherwise you get singled out. Very competitive within the ranks, but when you're in the heat, having a team looking out for you, that's a huge advantage. Tactically, is you just know you can depend on that guy, or the right or left you, and he's not gonna he's not going to retreat. Politically, I can tell you saw in the Trump campaign. At times during the campaign, there were some people that the first smell of gunpowder retreated to the tree line. As you know, when the heat's on, that's the time to perform. And those weren't the Teddy Roosevelts.
Yeah.
Man, I tell you, what's the lesson you learn? What's the story that produced a lesson about never quitting that you used recently? Was it a Hell Week or first deployment, or with the command that you supported afterward? You almost have a whole nother attrition process model and going through that. What's a story that's relevant that you fall back to and go, hey, I remember making it through that, so I know I can make it through this.
Well, I'll tell you a story that is true. My career in the SEALs. When I was at SEAL Team 6, I was never in Blue Team. It was the Pirates. Every time I hung around Blue Team, we used to call it the porthole to hell, because the Pirates were pretty avant-garde and every bit the pirate image. And so I didn't have a perfect career, in the SEALs, but you learn from it. And the thing that I think, the story, as you come out of the SEALs, you learn from experiences, you recalibrate, and you keep pushing. And all of us have gone through tough times, back and forth. But I think not quitting in life and establishing goals, strong goals, and go, you know what, I'm going to win. And winning is get right back on the horse. For me, getting back on the horse was winning a state senator race in Montana. It was a tough race. And then winning a congressional seat twice, defending our community and having an influence and helping others, be successful in our community. Eric Greitens, a great governor of Missouri, already doing great things. Scott Taylor, in our community of trying to get people in a position of influence that have been there, done that. And it's helpful for America because there's a lot of talent. So, I think the never quit story is just keep going and look for opportunities to pull the community up and elevate leadership within our community to be on a national level. Our country's in trouble. Everyone should realize that. And this is where warriors and men of action, men and women of action, it's our time to lead.
Yeah, Zink, one of the things I wanted to ask you, and I think sometimes, and what I love about Marcus and Morgan and knowing those guys and knowing the community that we know, I mean, our stories, our never quit stories are they're the fruit of amazing circumstances, opportunity, and good fortune in a lot of ways, or misfortune that we just managed to endure through. One of the things I love encouraging the listeners with is just letting them and reminding them that, like, hey, I'm you, but for a series of different circumstances and opportunities. And there is a never quit story in everybody's childhood when they were in, late, or young teens or whatever, that just kind of was that first moment where they said, listen, if I stick through it, I can make it. Do you remember one of those? I mean, growing up in Bozeman, growing up in Montana, you guys encounter weather that's just freakish and unmerciful and all these other things. And one of the reasons I love trying to hear those stories is those stories are the stories that a lot of our listeners can absolutely relate to. They have their, and to try to reconnect them to that story of when they didn't quit when they were young, to remind them that they have that never quit gene inside them. Do you remember one of those from your youth, or watching your parents or someone you knew kind of just make it through something?
I was always the kid that would wake up early and I was there at the gym when the coach used to open the door. And to me, I wanted to be successful. I was to degree driven. I remember, we didn't have a swimming pool in Whitefish, Montana, and there's a lake in Montana. But I was on the swim team this summer, and even as a kid, the water was unbelievably cold. And I remember the coach used to throw a volleyball out. And the kids used to get in the water and swim around the volleyball and come back to the beach. And that was good preparation for SEAL training.
Oh yeah, that sounds a little bit like surf torture in high school.
Yeah, misery.
But I remember there were very few kids. Eventually, the coach would throw it out many times, and of course the water wasn't that deep because it was on shore. But I wanted to quit. I thought that water was just like Bud's. It is. There's no one enjoys surf torture because that's why it's called surf torture. And you want to get out of that water more than anything. But there's a certain drive in it that you want to be successful for others. And Admiral Olson and I had this conversation when I was a phase instructor, a SEAL instructor. And the conversation was, I think SEALs to a degree are better when you do have attrition. Because you look around and you see someone failed when you're in there, that makes you, at least in your mind, special.
It's confidence.
So if you have a class that no one leaves, then the sense is you're not special. And pre-screening, you can screen to a degree, but you never know unless you're in the breach. How that round's gonna fly, right? So I look at it and go, having succeeded where others fail, that drives what's being someone special. And we've gotten in a society where everybody's a winner. 2 + 2 is 5. Try again. And I think it's important to keep the bar high. Let everyone have the opportunity to be successful or fail. But don't lower the bar because that's what makes and that's what has made our country great is that drive and allowing people to be special and we have founders of our I'm in Washington D.C. looking to monuments. The reason why we have great monuments is we have great founders that are deserving of recognition for being special.
Well, that's perfect.
That's great.
You need to fail to know how to celebrate your accomplishments. And I mean, that perfect example is the trophy kids. You're right. I mean, you got the first place and then second place get the same trophy. Well, then what's the deal with the first place, even if you're not keeping score? And look, yeah, it hurts when you lose. Your kid's upset, man, but there is a lesson learned in that, right? That makes you a better person. If you win all the time, then how do you know what you've accomplished?
And
right?
to value that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I came up kind of like he did. So, and that's a great question, Clint, what you asked him, because people say, oh, he's in politics and he's successful in that. Like, well, I mean, God, what'd you do before that? Well, he was a Navy SEAL. Well, I can't do that either. What did you do before that? Oh, you played college ball. Oh, man, I definitely can't do that. Can you go further back than that? And then if you pigeonhole it back, we all start relatively the same. If you're born weak, if you're born strong, it doesn't matter. At that particular time, man, you're out there putting your work in. I think it boils down to your work ethic. I was always taught that the value comes in what you've learned.
And read at the lead of the show, we talked about Teddy Roosevelt. He was not born of natural talent. Through perseverance, through just grit, he built himself into the colonel on the horse, Medal of Honor winner. Charging up that hill, and that was Roosevelt, a self-made and earned hero.
Yeah, and he was not an athletically gifted person. That's everybody should read about Roosevelt's formative years, because what it'll do is it'll take away that sense of hey, if I was talented, I could be successful. Because there was nothing in Roosevelt's early years that would project what he was ultimately going to become. I mean, shoot, when I was in 8th grade, I was the 5th string fullback, and there were only 3 other fullbacks. I mean, try to figure that one out. I was like, hey, coach, we're skipping a whole position on the depth chart for me.
If you label at a young age, I have a kid, I have a son too. I tell him I love him. I tell him my dad never told me I was special because Morgan and I were born early. But he goes, you will be trained. If you strap that special label on somebody without the skills, and they automatically think that, then how do they know if their skills are progressing? Right? You got somebody.
Well, Marcus,
that puts
I think you're special, Marcus. Does that help?
Yeah,
I do. I think you're special too, Marcus.
I think you're special.
I asked him to tell me that all the time.
You married well.
Right?
I'll give you that. You
I
married
did,
well.
Yeah. See, that's it.
Truth.
Yeah, that's the only thing I did right. But
True.
yeah, if you put the value in yourself and not what you own, so everything you have as a SEAL and everything as a football player that comes with you when you walk in the door. They can't be stripped away.
Right.
A car, your clothes, everything else can be stripped away. If you hold the value in what you've learned in yourself, then man, that's priceless, I would think.
And everybody has this origin story. Everybody has this origin never quit story. The day in third grade you wouldn't let anybody take your lunch money anymore, and you got beat up, but it didn't hurt as much as you thought it was. And one of the things that's so fun about this podcast is reconnecting everyone to their never quit story that they may have forgotten. Because you forget stuff. You forget stuff when stuff gets hard and the fog rolls in. And that's why you got to run with people that remind you who you are and that you're special, right? You know, you got to, hey, remember that time you know, it's amazing when you literally sit down and talk with someone, you just start asking them stories about their story, where they come from. Everyone's got that moment where they could have quit and they didn't. And most of the time it's about reconnecting them to that part of them that's still there. It's just sleeping. It's just hibernating. So I love that. And the cold is an evil mistress, man. She just doesn't care who you are. You can't train for the cold. You just got to decide you're going to win it 1 second at a time. I mean, that's I can't imagine being on the swim team in Montana. That just sounds pretty awful.
Absolutely.
Well, we were pretty fast at the time.
Oh yeah.
Probably
Right?
the temperature of the water.
Right? No kidding.
Right. Based on your answer, your approach, you already seem to have developed some sort of pursuit of excellence, that discipline. Can you take it back a little further and give us an idea of where that was? It heroes, for example, like Teddy Roosevelt? Was it example like your father? Was it where's the inception point for that?
You know, I think probably the biggest influence in my life was my grandmother. You know, she left home when she was 14 years old. She came from a big family. Her mother had passed away. Her father likely began to use her as kind of the surrogate. So she left 14. She was one of the youngest folks to graduate with a teaching degree, and went out west. The only job during the early part of the Depression that she could find was on a reservation near Poplar, Montana, in a one-room schoolhouse, teaching kids.
Oh wow!
So she was the pioneer, you know, out there, and you know she was influential because she was tough. But she had a real soft side about kids and children and education, and she's the one that pushed really hard about values and the importance. She was a Roosevelt fan. The importance of standing your ground, being a Boy Scout. She pushed me, cultivated and influenced me in the scouting program. You know, I think the scouting program it has been, certainly in my life, a great influence on respect for the outdoors.
Oh, sure.
And then, you know, in the SEALs, when, you know, I didn't have any, again, after college, I didn't have any particularly knowledge of, or I didn't really know what the SEALs were. Once you're inside and you see, you know, how committed people are, the amount of talent. Quite frankly, the younger guys today are far more talented, I think, than my generation. I mean,
they're better looking. I mean, they're more talented.
Well, they can ride a horse.
Are good looking.
We got better style.
Down, like back to you. We were the best looking frogmen.
Well, and I'll tell you the other thing. You know, in my career, and you know, 23 years in, most of the career was spent training hard. And we trained hard, exceptionally hard. And then occasionally, you know, a conflict would come up. But nothing to the scale of what these guys are today that have done, you know, a dozen plus deployments. All of them are combat hardened. Some of them have spent more time overseas than they have even at home, and there's a strain on the community that wasn't so pronounced with my group, and so I think we have to be careful about overusing special forces and our troops, because they come back and what becomes normal is over there rather than here. We're putting a lot of stress on the family and the home life and those type of things. But the amount of talent and lethality and the ability to use technology seamlessly on the battlefield, and brings so much more to bear than a prick 17 or 77 or a prick 117. The radio that in my era.
Sure. These are amazing young men. One of the things I think you pointed out that's really important too is our kind is not gifted at restraint. And so it's not our nature to pull ourselves out of the games when we're hurt. I can't tell you how many games I played in hurt, and Zink, I'm sure you're the same. And if the operator doesn't know restraint, then it's incumbent upon the leadership of the nation to impose it. And that's why I tell people all the time, like, it wasn't debatable whether you have a safety stand down in the military. The only debatable thing is how long it is, because you got to reset. You got to learn something from the last one. You got to reload. You got to recalibrate. You got to redeploy. And so one of the things I'd be really interested to hear you talk about is how much of that joint environment. I got to believe that those last few years in the SEAL community, standardizing, creating collaboration points, creating some efficiencies, that's got to be influencing what you're doing now. The reality is to look outside your own community, create a collaborative environment, I've never been the kind that thinks leaders need to lead by consensus, but I think when you don't seek a consensus, you got to be dealing with the consequences if you're wrong, and that's just okay. Heavy is the brow that wears the crown. But I got to believe that formalizing that and codifying that and standardizing that is going to be really helpful experience of what it is you're trying to do now.
Well, and Interior has Fish and Wildlife Service, Park Service, BLM, Bureau of Indian Affairs. We stretched 12 time zones. We from the Virgin Islands all the way to Palau and American Samoa. About 20% of the territory of the United States falls under the jurisdiction of the Department of Interior. And, looking forward, we are going to reorganize along the same lines as what all of us are familiar with more joint commands, getting the different sections of the government to talk to each other, work together, because we've created these bureaucracies that are stovepiped or siloed, where communication isn't done. The military did this with joint commands. While you still wear a Navy uniform, but when you operate, you have access to joint communications, and we're a stronger force from it. I think there's a huge opportunity. The president has tasked me, as well as all secretaries, to look at excessive regulation, reorganize to make sure decisions, guess what, are pushed to the front line. That means take a look at your sergeant and your chief in the front line, make sure they have the resources. And if you look at your headquarters, and your headquarters is too big or too much in a micromanaging business, shame on you. And this is what we all know from the military, is when the sergeant and chief are not only happy but capable and have the right resources, the force wins. So focus on the front line, and if you push more authority, more resources to the front where they belong, and that's exactly what we're going to do in Interior.
That's where the talent is. The talent is with the boys out on the FOBs and the outpost, regardless of branch, conventional special operations doesn't matter. The resident knowledge and the talent of the fighting force is with a senior enlisted community and the ground fighter that's the furthest away from the flagpole.
Yeah, and the perspective in the front line is a lot different than the headquarters sometimes, and you put your command and control where you have best situational awareness, but you pay attention and you listen to what's going on in the front line.
Yeah, decreasing that gap makes everybody more efficient, and a good thing. I got a question, sir, for you. All this thing that you've accomplished and up through the teams and now into running our country. I mean, when you get up in the morning, a lot of people want to know the daily routine, right? The one thing that kind of gets you up in the morning, like I get up in the morning, head straight to the shower, that kind of thing that starts your day. The steps or what you tell yourself. I mean, it's different, but it's the same kind of marginally for everybody that we talk to who is successful and has accomplished something. You have something like that you can share?
Well, I believe it or not, my routine is not so much different than what it was when I was a commander. I get up in the morning, I'll work out for an hour and a half, take a shower, go in, do an officer's call, which is a roundtable, what's going on, look at what's happening in the news, looking at what the different divisions are doing, and then it's focusing. I have a talented group of people. If you empower your people to make the right decisions, given that centralized direction, decentralized execution, very attentive to the president and his executive orders to make sure that we're supporting. As the president, as an example, with the energy, as the president signs his executive orders on looking at regulation and stopping the war on coal, then from the Secretary of Interior, then I supply my supporting secretary orders to read through those and make sure they're correct. It's a lot of fun. It is a super large command with a lot of talent, a lot of responsibility. You're not putting people into harm's way, but you're protecting our legacy of our public lands, and you're also protecting our legacy of traditions. Marcus, you're a big hunter. You like it. I want to make sure that your children's children have the same opportunity to go out there and hunt in our public lands and respect and enjoy our heritage. So it's a lot of fun, a lot of responsibility. But again, I have a great boss. He doesn't micromanage. He just expects results, and therefore on my team, I have the same type of leadership style. I'm not going to micromanage. I'm going to give you direction, and I'm going to expect results.
Well, I think it's the leadership we've always been around in the community. But the great leadership we've been around is not micromanaging, but expecting results. And I think you mentioned Admiral Olson and some of these other guys that you've been able to work around. That was the standard that I graduated into the community of high expectations, deep resourcing, decentralized decision making, and then consequences when you don't perform. That's the beauty of the meritocracy, man. The meritocracy is if you get it done, great. If you don't, go away. And that's the way football works. That's one thing I love about football is the game's honest. The game tells the truth. You can't lie during a game. The game is going to expose you. And so run around with people who feel the same way, you're just going to produce better results.
Yeah, and I had the privilege in my career of I worked with Bill McCraven and Tom Richards and Olson.
Oh, that guy too.
Mass chiefs in there. I've had some magnificent mass chiefs that keep me out of trouble.
That story of Admiral Richards looking down at his hand and thinking that he was a piece of shrapnel hanging out of it, and he bit down on it to pull it out of his hand. It was his bone.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember that story.
God, dang, talk about toes curling up. Woo. That's tough, man.
Yeah, I saw Admiral Richards the other day, and he still looks good. The Hulk.
Right?
Hey, so two things we want to do as we kind of wrap up. We're going to be good with your time. We know you got a lot to do, but really the last two things we want to do is if you give really three pieces of advice to the listeners that they can onboard and action on today. And then after that, anything that you think is really important, we want to give you an opportunity to share what's important to you and to the agency that you represent, the great men and women of the BLM and the Interior and all these other things. We just want to kind of ask you to give three actionable pieces of advice someone can turn on today, and then let us know what's important to you so we can be paying attention to that.
Well, advice is, a lot what we just talked about is one, never quit, believe in yourself, and at some point you got to trust others around you. So it is about a teamwork. I'll share a story recently about the president. As you may know, that the president and I and Scott Taylor, among others, went out to receive Chief Owens' body as he came back at Dover.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you,
That was great. You did that, by the way.
Yeah.
Yep, and I can tell you, the president was a different person before and after. And what I saw was the creation of a commander-in-chief. You know, it's one thing to have the responsibility and think about putting people in harm's way. It's another thing to see the consequences of it.
Absolutely.
And watching and being with the president as he marched on the plane and carried the body, and the casket off the plane. I tell you, he became a commander-in-chief at that moment. I saw a change in the president, and the following day was the National Prayer Breakfast, and he was changed, and he clearly understood the consequences and the responsibility and the commitment there, and I just all the moments where you see a change, a positive change in an individual and a leader. To me, I was front and center and witnessed it with our president.
You're going from sympathy to empathy in that moment. I mean, empathy is something you experience. Sympathy is something you can't relate to, but you recognize the unfortunate. You watch that. You watch that whole. And we all go through that. We all go through. We know there's a potential that we're going to lose our friends when we join the community. And intellectually, you understand that, but you can't emotionally comprehend it until it actually happens to you.
Gravity catches up with you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I would say when you get bucked off the horse, get back on it.
That's right. Or in Roosevelt's case,
one lesson learned about from a Montana perspective is, if you miss the first shot, take a second. And if you get bucked off the horse, make sure the girth is tightened and get back on her.
And if you're Roosevelt, you get bucked on a moose, just get back on the moose, too. It's one of the greatest pitchers of all time. Right.
Well, I'm not sure I'd get back on a moose.
Yeah. I got up on his ass in the first place. Yeah.
That might be a lesson learned. Don't ride a moose.
Don't ride a moose. That's advice number 3. Point number 4 right there. That's a freebie. So anything you want to share with us, kind of as we wrap up, we certainly appreciate your time. I want to be respectful of kind of the burden of your days and people who need some.
No, I just enjoyed the conversation, certainly, guys, and I appreciate what you do. You guys are heroes. And
no, we're not.
You're in Frogman in D.C. Let me know, and we'll go out and have a libation and a good laugh. But I greatly appreciate all you've done.
Oh, hey.
Yep.
Yeah, man. Don't think for one second that next time we're up in D.C., Melody wants to come by and see you. She's really excited about you getting picked up for this. She's a big traveler and loves the parks too. So we'll be doing
we'll fire up that Harley and maybe go for a ride.
There you go. Absolutely.
Nice.
There you go.
All right, brother. Enjoy the rest of your day, man. Be safe. If you need anything from us, you know the deal. Always holler.
And likewise, teams and you know the deal.
Teams and ...
Just teams and shit.
Right.
I'm enlisted. I can say it out loud.
Yeah, you got it.
Booyah.
One of the things that was most interesting to me about that conversation was everything you just heard today. If you switch out SEAL team for your kind of your group, the people you run with, the command for your career, the DC for where you're living right now, all those truths apply. I mean, there's everything that, Zinke relied on as a football player, as a SEAL officer, and now, in politics, and now at the executive level in politics. Nothing's changed. I mean, from the fundamentals, like how you become successful, those haven't changed. Only the maps changed, right?
Yep.
And the resources have changed. But the listeners should be so encouraging in that, hey, there's nothing different about this. It all comes down to, as a linebacker, it all comes down to read step. Take that shelf step, figure out what's going on, run as fast as you can, hit that person as hard as you can. Nothing changes. And I think that's what's cool. And that's one of the reasons that's one of the things that help you never quit is remembering that there's nothing really that unique about this challenge you're facing right now. It may look different, it may be bigger, and it may be angrier, but the truth is the truth, and the fundamentals will get you through it.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're always seeing on this show, right? And the further we get into this, and we continue to say it, all these stories have fundamentals that are similar.
Well, his ability to change commands, if you will, change jobs, and go into a different environment where you actually have to work in a team and you can't be the individual. I mean, that ought to tell you something about yourself and how well we work with each other. I mean, if you have a skill set and you're applying it to something and you're not going as far as you want, there's somebody that has the same determination and same end game as you, then buddy up with them. I mean, you learn stuff from people just by doing stuff with them, and maybe some of the things you didn't even know. And it's that passion that drives you and that will to keep getting back up that, I mean, hell, enabled him to do. Look at all this stuff. I mean,
just particularly that foundation of like a pursuit of excellence and discipline
and belief in yourself
coming from his grandmother.
Yeah, and here's the thing: is everybody, and that's what I was talking about. He goes, I know you're Secretary of the Interior now. You were a Navy SEAL, man. People see that and like, well, I can't do that, so obviously he has something I don't. That's not how it works, man. You just go far enough back. Everybody, it's the same thing.
And little building blocks.
Yeah, it's your baseline, right? And if you try to skip some of those steps, then if you get hit, there's nothing there to catch you, right? But if you're like, in order to become a Navy SEAL, I ought to be able to do 1 push-up, right? And then 2 push-ups and 3 push-ups. And there's nothing wrong with taking the time to learn everything you need to know, so you have it when you get there. And if you try to bypass,
you're going to learn afterwards if you don't.
Yeah.
You're going to learn at some point. You're going to learn before. You're going to learn after, but you're going to learn.
Yeah, you're going to learn it in your failure.
Correct.
And that'll happen. That's okay.
Right. And when that happens, man, it's easier to stop doing it, right? That's the quit moment because you think you're not good enough. Right. No, it's not that at all, man. It's just the person across from you put the time in. And
that's the danger of everyone's always a winner. You don't get the chance to learn from those failures.
God damn, I never in my head I never wanted to be the best at anything. I just wanted to be good enough to be in there.
I wanted to belong to the best. I never wanted to be the best. And one of the reasons listen, I was the upper half of the bottom third in everything we did in the SEAL teams, man. So but being the best, I think all of us, you can aspire to that if you want to. I wanted to be able to keep up with the best. Pick a fast moving tribe and just kind of earn my keep and keep up with them.
Sure.
Right?
Pull your weight, right? Pull your weight and
that's right.
In the community we're in of the best people at this job, right? And you're pulling your weight. I mean, that's recognition in itself. Because eventually what happens is, man, you learn all of that stuff from everybody around you and you pick it up and people come and go, man, and you keep progressing. Just keep that with you and you'll be at the top. Before you know it, it just happens.
Absolutely.
And you'll be at your top, not the top, your top, because your top's the only one that matters.
Right. Yeah, don't let somebody else's perception become your reality. I mean, that's just, if somebody else is writing your book, man, you're just a figure in their story. You're not even writing your own, and in your world, man, in mine, I don't have to go to sleep to live in a dream. I wake up every morning, man. A Navy SEAL, that's a dream. You see that stuff in movies and books, right? And that's kind of, you got to look at it like this. I mean, it's to wake up and live here in the United States. You go out and do or become anything. Well, almost. I've been trying to be Spider-Man for the longest time. It's just not working.
Well, and I've been trying to get Meatloaf to let me come on tour with him. He's not.
What's his problem?
Not doing it.
What is his problem?
I don't know. I could be both a roadie and a backup singer. I don't know what the issue is. I can carry heavy stuff.
Man, you got a lot of. I mean, you got a big family too, man. You can put them to work.
Let me go on record as saying too. I think Zinke, now that he's an executive, like he has to say what he said about Sasquatch. I don't think. Do you notice how quickly he said that?
Yeah, I knew you were a little upset about that. I think if you could have seen your face,
you fire out the answer really quickly if it's a cover story, and it's just like that was a standardized answer there. I think
that sounded like a rote response.
I could see you were crushed. Yeah,
it was a rote. It was.
They probably when he checked in, he's like, "Hey, this is the list of the stuff you're going to get asked, and this is the answer we're going to need you to say."
Yeah, I think that's when we lost him the first time. He's like,
"You think he has an assistant who sits there and writes that stuff?"
You can't. I know, right?
Like in real time. He's like, "I'm not sure," and they just provide
the best double talk is from Spies Like Us when Chevy Chase gets up there.
Yes.
I want to do that so bad. I should have done it at the RNC. Again, feedback here. But any questions? Have you seen that? It's epic, man.
Watch the sound engineer just losing his mind.
Hey, man, that was a cool interview. I mean, we're going all the way back to Roosevelt of the swim team in Montana, which wins the hardcore race. right there. It just fits so well with Marcus being here with you and Wizard having you on the phone, and of course my name's Clint Bruce. Opportunity to share these stories with you are really a lot of fun. The mission here at the Team Never Quit podcast is to remind you how to never quit, to reconnect you stories from your past and encourage you with stories from other people's lives on what they're doing to never quit and how you can do that today. Find more on tnqpodcast.com and tneverquit.com, the podcast. And, the truth of the matter is we always come back to this, great stories ignite legends, and happy to share some of those with you.
Absolutely. You guys want to say what you're thankful for?
Man, I tell you, that's one of the hardest questions to answer. Who's your mentor? Because I have a ton of them. What's your never quit story? Because I have a ton of them. And what am I thankful for? I mean, the list just goes on. And obviously, my family, my bride, my girls, my creator, the architect of this whole thing with what I believe, and just the opportunity to breathe deeply today and take another hill, man. It's just really a lot of fun.
I'm going to close this out. I'm going to close it out by saying thankful to my wife every single day for giving me my family and my friends. And I'll tell you what, I've been on the road traveling, doing my the speaking engagements, stuff like that, and I've been doing this for a while now, and I just thank God for being born in this country, man. It is just an honor to walk among our people. I mean, from bikers to billionaires. It's been a great experience just to talk with them and learn exactly what our country means. So thank y'all for that, man. I love y'all, and I'm out.
I'm out.
I'm out.